Welcome to the Mindful Monk series, and I'm your host, Father Simon Sleeman in Glenstal. I'm just hearing a plane going overhead, a rare sound these days. I'm in a different location. Well, I'm just where the heather was blooming some months ago. It's now finished blooming, and I want to take you to a different location. You can see behind me the tower where I was, the chapter room below, and up above a different room where I'll go to take you to shortly. Just to say, each week I try to listen to what is the thing I should speak about, and this week has been no different. I've been given a prompt, and so I'll take you to this other space in the monastery. So I've come in the door and now going to go up the stairs, take you with me as we climb up the stairs. As I say, this tower was an empty space for many years, and we put in the stairs and created a hole in the castle wall, and you can see the courtyard outside. And before I go in, just to thank Mary and Nuala and Morris for their helpful contributions and encouragement. So in here we have the monastery playroom, or the monastery gym, which you can see all the bits of equipment you might expect to see, and a beautiful wall up high and the skylight above. So it's a lovely open space, a space I use myself. I mainly often come here to dance by myself, because you can play loud music. But it's really, I've come here because I love this painting of Picasso, the two hands holding the flowers, simple, playful, joyful. Keep something beautiful in your mind during these hard, difficult times, and they are that. Let us not forget it, and be kind and easy on ourselves. So, just before I begin talking, let's just take a moment to recollect and calm, making sure our shoulders are down. Another tip I found recently is to do nasal breathing. I found it enormously helpful, and I actually going to do a series a session on breathing shortly, because I think it's just fundamental to maintaining calm amidst the stress that we're about. So why am I here? Because I heard a report on the radio yesterday, the World Service, about schooling in Japan. Schools were opening and children were coming in every second day, and they were sitting 2 meters apart, and they were wearing masks, and they weren't allowed out to play. And the second reason is that when I was in the school a year and a half, 2 years ago now, I was absolutely stunned to hear that there was a crisis in empathy, that there were courses being organized for the children in empathy. That really was a shock. And technology is the easy thing to blame. You know, that children are too much on their phones or on screen time, and there is a lot of evidence to suggest that they are spending too much time on technology. But in the end, technology is not to blame, and it's here to stay. So we need to accept that fact, and you can't get away from it. But it's not technology's fault, it's our relationship to technology which is the issue. I just noticed my shoulders had gone up already trying to do this. It's not technology that's the issue, it's how we relate to it. That's what we've got to get a hold of. And loss of empathy is a very high price to pay for this screen time. I think many of us have lost the ability to play, and I'm talking to adults and children, although I will say more about adults possibly next week and the importance of play. Downtime, fun time, and enjoyment. And I'm not talking about video games. You know, there's research for over the last 10 years which shows that video games really are unhelpful, decrease motivation, decrease social skills, and can lead to obesity. Children becoming obese as their life is constantly filtered by these digital devices. So I'm not talking about structured, supervised play in playgrounds where health and safety are the guidelines for building a playground. I was involved in building a playground locally in our village, and everything had to be standardized. The rungs in the ladder had to be the same distance apart. Where's the learning in that, I asked myself. Life doesn't give us ladders where the rungs are equally apart. Life throws at us ladders where the rungs are all sorts of skewed places. And so children are being taught to look for ladders that have a standard width. So I find that the playgrounds and the over-supervision of much sporting activity it's really de-skilling children. As my mother said, there's not play now, there's just competition, and parents and coaches guiding everything, supervising everything. I'm talking about free play. Play is how children discover who they are and explore the world around them. It's a way of connecting with each other, with parents, with siblings, with friends. It's how they discover their emotions. They argue, they develop collaborative skills, working together to play a game. And most importantly, they can gain a sense of mastery over their world. And we can too, which helps protect against anxiety and depression, because you gain a sense of agency playing. And if they don't have the opportunity to take control of their actions, or indeed our own, to make their own decisions, to solve their own problems, we're not always solving the problem for them, to make their own rules. They can grow up feeling that they've no control over their lives or their fate, you know. They grow up feeling they're dependent all the time, and on the goodwill and the whims of their parents or their teachers or the coach, and they can be set up for anxiety and depression for their lives. There was an interesting quote I came across which read, let me try and remember, I have it here somewhere. Today in young people, there's an increasing struggle with the transition from home to school. They're wonderful kids, but some can't share easily or listen in a group. Some have trouble keeping their hands to themselves. Others don't always see that actions have consequences. A few suffer terribly from separation anxiety. And we're not talking about preschool children.
These are Harvard graduates whom we teach and advise. They all know how to work, but some of them haven't learned how to play. So really, children are being asked to spend too much time in academic work or adult-directed, supervised activities and not engaging enough time playing, I would argue strongly. Children need to be left alone, and if they're left alone, they will learn from each other. When they're in the woods and they fall and they cut themselves, or they're frolic on the beach in the waves, or whatever it is they play at. And I think we must be slow to intervene and try to protect them out of love, because they won't be prepared to face the trials and tribulations when they're finally out of the nest, and the fledglings or birds are all out of their nest at the moment, and the atmosphere in the woods is totally different. There's this sort of a anxiety amongst the parents as their fledglings try to get away. So the consequences of not playing for adults and for children are serious. Overprotecting, over-supervising, over-structuring of time means that they won't learn from their foolish mistakes or experience the pain and the loss and make a mess. And that prevents them, from discovering about who they are. And we may try to stop them because we love them and want to protect them, but we also may be limiting their scope to become fully human beings. There's a wonderful Jared Diamond, he wrote a book called The World Until Yesterday, and he was studying hunter-gatherer societies in New Guinea. Now, in hunter-gatherer societies, they regard young children to be autonomous individuals whose desires must not be thwarted, must be respected. And they're allowed to play with dangerous things such as knives and hot pots and fires. And though plenty of the children, he says, grow up with physical scars, they don't have perfect bodies, they are the opposite of being emotionally scarred. They're emotionally secure, self-confident, curious, and have a tremendous autonomy, he found. And he found and claimed that this sets them apart from children brought up in the cautious Western culture. Animals also play, particularly our close relatives. Monkeys, bonobo monkeys, and they learn how to be in a group, how to interact, how to have empathy. How can you have empathy unless you've hit someone and they're hurt, or you've been hit and you're hurt? How do you know how other person feels? There's an interesting experiment done with rats where one group were allowed to play and another group were not play. These were juvenile rats who play a great deal if they're allowed to. When the non-players were reintroduced with the players, they didn't fare very well. They couldn't manage the stress of it. And they couldn't find their place in the pack. They didn't know where they belonged. And they were either overly aggressive or overly shy to the point of avoiding the group and the other rats. And they didn't mate or they didn't survive well. Their lives were curtailed. And we have similar neural structures and neurotransmitters to rats and monkeys. I think that's an interesting finding. So to conclude, for me, play is another piece of armor in our weaponry. It's not frivolous, it's not a waste of time when there's important work to be done or study for the leaving. It's our adaptive wild card, and it enables us to learn to adapt to a fast-changing world. As I say, our close relatives don't believe it's frivolous. And for us, especially in times when it seems least appropriate to play, may be the very time that it becomes important. It means we explore options. We take in novelty. We can take in novelty and be more flexible and have a good time in the process. So what can we do? Well, one of my main suggestions would be to allow children to play five-a-side, to play a pick-up game, or even for ourselves. Think of the skills that a child learns out on a street or in a field with 10, 8, 9, 10 pals, setting up a five-a-side soccer game, hurling, whatever. They have to mark out the pitch, make out the goal area, decide on the rules, mark the edges of the pitch. They have to call foul when someone cheats, or how do they allow someone new in? Think of all the multiple skills they're getting in that, allowing them to do that unsupervised without someone coaching or teaching them all sorts of important skills. And there are many other ways to play which I know you can come up with, and I'll try to mention a few again. But I'd like to end with a prayer which I heard this morning, and it's very beautiful, I thought. So until next time, keep safe and keep well, keep those shoulders down and breathing through your nose, and see what a difference that can make to calming your body. Lord, make each moment of our lives a miracle. Make us laugh at the utterly impossible. Give us hope when all things seem hopeless. Love for the unlovable. Peace where no peace could be. Make us gamble all on your almightiness, and to dare everything in your service. Amen. Every blessing to you. And keep something beautiful in your heart. I have Picasso's beautiful painting in my heart today. God bless.